top 50 free agents list out now, Frank. You can read the full list at dailyfaceoff.com. There's a couple really interesting areas I want to hit on with you. Starting up near the top of your list, there are 3 players who it feels like they're going to stay exactly where they are. Sam Reinhart in Florida, Jake Gensel in Carolina, Steven Stamkos in Tampa Bay. If you had to pick one that there's a sliver that they end up leaving their current home, which one is maybe the most likely to go somewhere else?
Probably Jake Gensel. I think we've seen a real reticence from the Carolina Hurricanes to pay market value price. He is 30 years old. He's been a perfect fit, fits like a glove in Carolina, and they've been missing a game breaker like him. And I think that's a pretty big reason why. You look at the betting odds, they would imply today on Bet365 that the Canes have a 60% chance to advance to the Eastern Conference Final and beat the President's Trophy winners. So to me, I think he fits well, but look at what's happening with Rod Brind'Amour. There is no better fit, franchise icon, and they're grinding him to a stump. If you're doing that to your franchise icon and unquestioned good head coach of arguably the NHL's most consistent team over the last 6 years, what are you doing to a newly acquired player who's 30 years old and needs a massive new contract?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Between Stamkos and Reinhart, is one of them more of a lock to stay in the Sunshine State?
My money would be on Reinhart next. I just think it makes too much sense. And yes, I think the big question is how much will the Florida Panthers be willing to pay a premium for a statistical outlier season? 57 goals, 94 points. William Nylander signed $92 million. He had 4 more points and 17 fewer goals, $11.5 million a year. I've been saying all year, can't we just have 8 times 9.5 for Reinhart? Look at the Florida state tax and see that 9.5 is worth 12.4 in Toronto and say, hey, this is better than Nylander's deal. Let's lock it up and get it done and get it over with. I think if it were that simple, it already would have happened. I don't know what the hangup is, but it's a fascinating case because he had such a fantastic year and is such a good fit with Alexander Barkov that I just can't envision a path for the Panthers to let him walk.
How would you feel if you're Alexander Barkov and you had all that chemistry with Huberdeau and then he goes, I know you got Matt Tkachuk back in that and not like he's complaining, but then again, you find chemistry with Sam Reinhart and it's like, okay, now he's gone as well. One guy who does feel like, reading the tea leaves could be on the move is Jonathan Marchessault. I know yourself and Jason Gregor this morning on the DFO Rundown talked about this, and Gregor kind of said as soon as they got Hurdle, it felt like it was a signal to Marchessault that we might be moving on from you. Is that an accurate read of this situation?
It's just a mathematical read of the situation. I just can't look at the Vegas Golden Knights cap table with the addition of Tomas Hertl, with the new extension for Noah Hanifin, even with the cap space that's being added to the team, all 32 teams this summer, $4.3 million in additional dollars. The Vegas Golden Knights have basically spent a big chunk of that already. So then you have Marchessault have this incredible 42-goal year. How do you say goodbye to one of the original Golden Misfits who's won a Stanley Cup and been to a final and was such a big, it's not just won a Stanley Cup, such a big part of the run to the Stanley Cup. It's tough to envision the Golden Knights without him, but I just can't see the math working to keep him. So unless he's willing to take a massive hometown discount, which also doesn't really make a lot of sense for him as someone who got kind of a late start in his career and has money to make up, so to speak, he's going to probably need to go after every dollar that he can. And I just can't see that happening in Vegas.
Yeah, I think that is fair. The cutthroat way of the Golden Knights continue.
I was going to say that's one thing that I so admire about Vegas is it's incredible to be as aggressive as they are in acquiring players. You can go out and get Eichel and Pietrangelo and all these different guys that you've brought in along the way. Now Hanifin and Hertl. But on the other side of that, that means that you have to be just as aggressive in making hard decisions to push players out the door, whether it was Stastny or Marc-Andre Fleury or Max Pacioretty, or then Now, the latest example last summer was Riley Smith after winning the cup. You have to make really hard decisions. And this is probably in the long run, even though it might hurt next season. But for 34-year-old Jonathan Marchessault, timing wise, this probably makes the most sense that you decide to cut ties with someone at that age while you got the best years out of him.
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia aside, who would you rather have at the $6-ish million range, Tomas Hertl or Jonathan Marchessault? The answer is pretty simple to give, and I commend the Golden Knights for being able to just, again, put loyalty to the side at times. Last one I got for you in terms of your top 50.
By the way, I would say I'm not sold on that either way. Like I might take Marchessault over Hertl, but we'll see.
Last one I got for you. When you look at your top 50, is there one player who's maybe, under the radar, a hidden gem somewhere in this list that you think teams are going to be, maybe going a little bit harder after than the public is looking at?
Yeah, I would say number 11 on the board, and that's Matt Roy from the Los Angeles Kings. There are always a shortage of right shot defensemen, and more than that, Matt Roy defends really well, and he's south of 30. He can give you some points, not a ton of incredible offensive upside, but he's so efficient in his own end that I think whoever targets Matt Roy is going to be in a great spot. And you look at his minutes, almost 21 minutes a night. He's just steady. He's not going to wow you, but I think he's going to be a great pickup for someone. And I can already tell, listening to teams size up the market quietly behind the scenes, Matt Roy is a name that has come up multiple times already to this point.
This just popped in my head, but it's like steady, right shot, D-man, defense first. And if the Oilers look to upgrade on Cody Ceci this summer, which I think they might, boy, wouldn't that be quite the funny signing? When you look at the top 50 in general, Frank, like when I was scrolling through the whole thing today, when you sent it to me, it was like, damn, this list goes pretty deep. There is some high-end talent. There's a lot of effective players. If you had to grade this free agent class compared to other years, where would it kind of fall?
B plus A. I mean, it's pretty close to as good of a class as we've seen in a while. It's deep. The only thing about this class is that it's a little bit older. Most of the guys on the board are north of 30. And that's the one thing that stands out when you see a Steven Stamkos at 34 or a Marchessault at 34, like we just talked about, Joe Pavelski at 40, Patrick Kane 36 or 35. Like these are all really talented, impactful pieces, but for the most part, they're a little bit on the older side. So I think there's a lot of value to be had in this class further down the board, whether you're an Alexander Carrier type of guy, to add on your back end, or a Brendan Dillon. Like there's all sorts of nice pieces that I don't think you have to spend an absolute arm and a leg for. And I think it's really going to line up for certain teams pretty well that are in varying stages of what they're trying to build. I think of a Calgary, I think of Utah, and I think of other teams that want to be more competitive, that aren't going to be big game hunting, that would like to try and find a way to improve their team through this free agent crop. And I think that's going to be one method to do so. 2 and 3 year deals in the $5 million range. You're going to have a lot to pick from.
Yeah. All right, that is a wrap. The full top 50 is up now, dailyfaceoff.com. This has been Icebreakers, presented by Booster Juice.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.